Ready? Ready? Good evening. The City of Plymouth City Council regular meeting for Thursday, March 14th, 2024 is now called to order. In-person participation by the public is permitted. Members of the public not attending in person may submit written comments prior to the meeting by emailing your comment to the Deputy City Clerk at vmchenry@cityofplymouth.org before 3:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Emailed public comments will be distributed to the City Council and made part of the official record. This meeting is being recorded. Council chambers are wheelchair accessible. Special accommodations may be requested by contacting the Deputy City Clerk 72 hours before the meeting. Please silence all cell phones or similar devices at this time. May we please have roll call?
Councilmember Amoruso.
Present.
Councilmember Sen.
Present.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
Here.
Mayor Ackerman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Vice Mayor McLaughlin, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And approval of the City Council regular meeting agenda for tonight, March 14th, 2024.
I make a motion to,
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Would somebody like to second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Aye.
Councilmember Sen.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Ackerman. Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Number 3, public comment. Under provisions of the government code, citizens wishing to address the council for any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. Please submit a completed speaker submittal form to the Deputy City Clerk. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or less, and speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence. For public comments on agendized items, speakers will be called by the mayor at the point on the agenda when the item will be heard. The City Council is prohibited from materially discussing or acting on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency nature or an urgent need to take immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. Have we received any written public comment?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you. And public comment here in City Hall, Mr. Cranford?
From the city council. Surprisingly, probably not surprising that you will see me here frequently in coming weeks. I'm here tonight to speak to you about the county casino and the ISNND. By your planner's own evaluation, it is woefully inadequate. It's filled with false, misleading, and unsupportable statements and conclusions. The project site, despite the IAD ban, including 135 references to reservation in the first 75 pages, it is not a reservation, never has been a reservation. The 2009 FEIS, on which the ISND is based, the most current data that could possibly be in that document is 15 years old. And the well data is 20 years old. It seems hardly reasonable to engage in any sort of negotiations based on data that is that old. All the maps included in the ISND are wrong. All the maps in the FEIS are wrong. The map in the compact is wrong. Does this give you an idea about who you might be meeting and conferring with? They can't even put their maps for their projects in the documents outlining their projects that are accurate and correct. The FEIS contains no mention. The 2009 FEIS contains no mention of a 349 machine casino. It also contains no mention or any map or any reference to a casino in the county. No map in the FEIS shows Village Drive as the main entrance. The document that the IS claims it's based on does not use Village Drive as the main entrance. There's no documents to support the claims made by the BIA and the deeds alleging to take the 10 parcels into trust. I would hope that somebody on this city council has taken the time to go find those deeds and see what they say and find out if the Iron Band is in compliance with federal law based on the information that's on those deeds. I would submit to you tonight they are not. The project site is not eligible for gaming. It's not a reservation, and it is not in trust. This city council and the board of supervisors, they need to start asking some really important questions. The IMBAN needs to start producing some documents to support their claims. The first one would be provide the document where this has been declared a reservation. I suspect that document probably doesn't exist. The Indian Land Consolidation Act, on which the current alleged trust is based, 25 USC 2101, 2201, 2202. Go look at that, go read it. Oh, in order to be eligible for that federal act, a tribe or a group of Indians must have voted against the IRA in 1934. Surprise, the Iron Band didn't vote in 1934. They're not eligible for the ILCA. You might ask for their land consolidation plan that's required by the ILCA. No. I suspect that doesn't exist either. And to be eligible for the ILCA, a tribe must have already had trust lands. You might ask the Iron Band where those deeds are. All the deeds to all the trust land for the Iron Band prior to March 17th, 2020.
Mr. Grantford, excuse me for interrupting. Typically, public comment is 3 minutes. We don't exactly have a big crowd here. So please continue for a couple of more minutes.
I'm already finished. I've simply asked this city council to ask the Iron Band to produce any or all of these documents. They should be readily available. They're the ones who's claiming it's a reservation. They're the ones who's claiming it's in trust pursuant to the ILCA. They surely must have these documents at hand. Well, I would submit to you, if they had those documents, they would be in the ISND. I would think that ask them to produce the documents as an act of good faith prior to any meeting confers. It's time for this board, this city council, to really start asking some important questions. You can facilitate the casino in the county, or you can protect the people of this county and this town if you just start asking some questions. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Okay.
Speak.
Okay, item 4, presentations, proclamations, appointments. We have none tonight. Item 5, consent calendar items. All matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless before the city council votes on the motion to adopt, members of the council, staff, or the public request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action.
I'd like to pull 5.4 for discussion.
Thank you. So we'll make 5.4, item 7.4. Okay, so we have 5.1 correspondence. There's no correspondence received. 5.2, approve the regular meeting minutes of February 22nd, 2024.
Change it.
Okay, so we're gonna pull that. We're gonna pull 5.2 off tonight's agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we have 5.1. And now we have a new 5.2, which is to accept the February warrant register. And do we have any public comment on the consent calendar? Okay, no public comment. I'll close that to public comment. And do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar items as changed?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar with 5.1 being correspondence and 5.3 being changed to 5.2 to accept the February warrant registry. Does that work? And then, and then to move 5.4 to 7.1. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Aversa.
Aye.
Councilmember Sim.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Ackerman.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you. 6, public hearings. There are no public hearings for tonight. 7, regular agenda items. 7.1, to adopt resolution number 2024-02, awarding a construction contract to LGM Construction for the Plymouth Fire Station Improvement Project in the amount of $187,345.75. Could we please have a staff report?
Yeah, bidding took place for this project. We had 4 contractors come to bid: LGM Construction, TNS West, ProX Construction, and Valley Construction Services. The winning bidder was LGM Construction at $187,345.75.
Okay, is there any public comment? No public comment tonight. Staff discussion. Any discussion or questions? Councilmember White,
I'm good.
Councilmember Amoroso,
Thank you.
Councilmember Sim.
It looks as though even though we lost CV1 funds of $56,334, we have enough money remaining in the fund, $204,000 to cover the bid of $147,000. That's a good thing. I'm just wondering, Kathleen, was there anything left out of this as a result of losing CV1, as far as you know?
I do not know. Larry, did you know anything about the funding part or just the construction?
Just the construction and the bidding process.
I believe there was 2 options on them, on the bids. Didn't they bid more than one price depending on what it was?
We had the base bid, which were items 1 through 10. We had an additive alternate number 1, which is the re-roof complete. We added the additive alternate number 2 that was based on during the bid walk. One of the contractors asked if they could just cover the roof over, so to make it simple, we just added that as an alternate. And then the additive alternate number 3 was the exhaust system. And that was the one that was chosen not to be because of the funding.
Could you hear that up there?
Yeah, I did.
Very sorry, Wyatt.
It looks like we have, are there any items that we should address? Because apparently, even after losing CV one, we apparently have, about $50,000 that we haven't spent. Is that correct, Kathleen? The difference between 204 and 147, roughly?
Honestly, I don't know the financials on this.
Well,
I'm sorry.
so the total funds of CV two and CV three is 204. 205, I'm rounding up the number, 205. And the bid for the repairs is 150. So there's about $50,000 over.
There's 40,000 re-roof also.
What's that?
There's a 40,000 re-roof also, so it's a.
We added alternate number one, so the actual contract price is 187.
Oh, see, you had alternate number one to the 147?
Yes. For a total of 187,345.
Oh, there's 50 grand.
Right,
Okay, so there's not a large pot of money left over.
and I believe the little bit that was left over would be considered contingency because stripping the roof off, if we find any dry rot,
Okay,
that's gonna be at a tighter material. So we wanted to have that ability to make sure we took care of it once we got the roof tore off.
thank you for answering that, appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir.
No, what was this?
Vice Mayor McLaughlin, do you have any questions, comments?
Just a quick question, the LGM, came in significantly less than the other three bidders, and one of which was exceptionally, almost double. Just the question, I mean, was there anything left in, left out? I mean, separate question from that, 'cause just their price was significantly different. Obviously, they're the lowest bidder, but are they also the most responsive bidder in terms of the contract bid?
Just to clarify real quick, we had 13 that did the bid walk. We received these 4. When we got that bid back, that we thought the same thing based on the numbers. Between that and the fact of our estimate, we were close. So we sat down with the owner of LGO Construction to go over that. And we as staff determined that probably part of the reasoning between the two different is the fact that LGO Construction is based out of Jackson and has local crews. The other ones are out in the valley or Sacramento, that area. So we figured that probably they were either going to have transportation costs and added things, or they had housing costs for their employees when they were in town, like having to stay at hotels, per diem and things like that, that potentially is what added in. But we sat down with Mr. Reagan and went over line by line and bounced things back and forth. And there's actually just like 3 items where there were really major changes. So we felt comfortable with his bid and he felt comfortable with his bid. So we moved forward.
Yeah, Mr. White, thank you for that very detailed response today. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
And I have no questions or comments except for Mr. White. Thank you for being here tonight. Do you mind if I ask you just for the record, if you would just state the firm that you're with? I know you're a building inspector, your title and all that.
My name actually, if you get official, is Lawrence Theo or Richard White. I go by Larry. I work for WGA Incorporated, now Hospital, and I am on my business card, I'm the senior inspector. I'm the old guy.
You're the old guy?
I'm the old guy.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Wait a minute, and if you're local, you'd know Larry, that's the other thing, right? He's gonna have that, yeah.
Okay.
He inspected my house.
He was our inspector back in the day, yeah.
I was just thinking in case anybody is listening and we're talking about Larry and nobody,
Oh,
and apparently myself doesn't know who Larry is.
Oh, that's right.
I know, I worked here in city of Plymouth in 1996.
Yep.
For a short term, and then I went to the city of Jackson for 20 years.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Where's Mr. Peabody?
Pardon?
Where's Mr. Peabody?
So
where's
do
Mr.
we,
Mr. Peabody's at home.
Oh.
Any other, it doesn't, if there's no other discussion from, or questions from the council, would somebody like to make a motion on item 7.1?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-02, awarding a construction contract to LGN Construction for the Plymouth Fire Station Improvement Project in the amount of $187,345.75.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please? Councilmember Aversa?
Aye.
Councilmember Sen?
All right,
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Mayor Eklund? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 7.2, to authorize an additional $49,706.30 in citizens' options for public safety COPS funds, in addition to that which was previously authorized in 2021 for the purchase of 2 sheriff patrol vehicles in the combined amount of $2,006,139.46. And do we have any public comment on this? Any written public comment received?
No.
No, okay. Any public comment here in City Hall? No public comment. Council discussion,
new staff report.
I'm sorry, staff report.
It's like, dang.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry.
She's like, almost got through.
Yeah, I almost got that. So basically, this originally came through in 2021 under Rex Osborne. And I don't know why it's taken so long to get to this point. But the agreement was that the city of Plymouth was going to provide 2 sheriff's vehicles using COPS money. And we're now getting to the point where that is where they are. I don't know all the reasons for the additional $49,706.30, but I'm kind of assuming that a lot of that might have just been costs increase over the years. Because inflation has gone high.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember White, any questions, comments on this?
No, I think I'm good right now.
Councilmember Amoroso?
I'm good at the moment.
Okay. Councilmember Sim?
I'm a little curious about the process in that I know this money comes from the state of California. It's part of the COPS grant. I know we pay the sheriff roughly $100,000 a year. And apparently over the course of the last number of years, that $100,000 that we get from the state of California gets some kind of increase adjustment. Is that where this money came from? Because all of a sudden, I was always of the impression that we only received $100,000 from the state of California. Apparently it's more than that, because obviously this money that we have here to buy the sheriff's cars and the 2 trailers. But I'm just looking, you know much about the process? Maybe Frank knows a little more about that.
Actually, since I've been here, that's what I've heard. I'm assuming if we're maybe more than that, then there may be an escalator.
There is an escalator.
There is an escalator, so that could be the difference. That can make up for the difference. I think it's a good question for Margaret and then.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. But why are we buying police cars? Why, if the money's theirs, which obviously it is, right? Money's coming from the state, it goes to law enforcement. Why don't we just pass the money up straight to them? Why are we messing around with all this?
I think that's what this is. I think this is a reimbursement.
Sorry.
This is a reimbursement. They've already purchased the vehicles.
No, I understand that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm with Kathleen, it takes 2 years to get a couple of cars. And I realize that if you read through the packet, a lot of the stuff has to do with high tech stuff. Apparently they made some of the stuff came to fruition during that 2-year period, who knows, right?
Well, I think outfitting does take time, but I think the other thing is just from what I've heard from a lot of other public safety agencies, especially during the pandemic, it was very difficult to bid on vehicles. Because as soon as I mean, some cities, they were having to go and get pre-approval from the council to purchase them, rather than your typical thing where you get a purchase order and then you go to council, because they couldn't hold them. The places were just going like that. So there was some supply and demand issues, I know for sure, that's probably part of it.
And computer problems, chip problems as well.
Yes.
The only other thing I was reading through the invoicing from town forward, and I was under the impression that the city and the sheriff's department does not pay sales tax, but Council Vice Mayor McLaughlin corrected me and said that they do pay
Yes,
tax,
they
sales
do.
tax.
Yes.
Sure. That's all I have. Thank you.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item, in going through, the agenda, I think a lot of what I need to do is echo, what Councilmember Sim has just mentioned, right? You know, I mean, the first sentence in here is while the cops funding in the city is increasing, that, you know, well, we're both the two people representing the council on the ad hoc committee for the sheriff, and I'll take complete ownership of the ignorance of not knowing it, but how could I possibly not know that our cops grant goes up every year when I've been charged with that responsibility? Which is, I discovered this late yesterday afternoon as I was reading the agenda in detail, and as I started going through, it raised more questions, and then finding, well, it's listed in our budget, and we show an ending balance of $430,000 after our distributions that are budgeted this year. And you know, and I'm trying to figure out where the additional money came from, right? To, you know, pose the question, you know, Mary was, I think, is looking into it. I mean, I know it was very short notice coming through. I also reached out to Gary Redmond to understand, because I mean, all of the cops money ultimately goes to the counties, dispersed to the cities, and then it goes forward, and he wasn't aware of any increase to it. And as the conversation ensued, Rex reached out to Sheriff Redmond, and said, we have Zinfandel Ridge CFD money to buy, do we need to spend? What do you need? What about some vehicles? What about radar trailers? During the conversation that Gary Redmond shared with me today, he was under the impression that we were using Zinfandel Ridge CFD, not COPS grant, because if he'd known we had extra COPS money, he would have activated the meet and confer provision in our existing contract to increase, to negotiate an increase in the annual COPS allocation for law enforcement services. And, you know, I know looking in the Michael's staff report is included here, and it's obviously very clear, it was listed as COPS money. And then reading the minutes, you know, even Sheriff Redmond in the minutes noted that he supported the purchase going forward, talked about the need going forward. And at the time, we basically had the level of service equivalent of 1/2 deputy as opposed to the 9/10 deputy. And so we found ourselves in a spot where we have $430,000. Our level of service is diminishing every year. And here we are, right? And so for me, a lot of this comes as a bit of a surprise, and some of what you're hearing is not having a whole lot of time to process all of this. I have no reason to disbelieve Sheriff Redmond's belief that this was to be CFD monies to purchase the vehicles, because he doesn't have what the revenue sources, you know, I guess irrelevant to him if the city is going to be paying for 2 vehicles, right? And so I don't know where or how or whatever. All I know is we need to find a better way of being able to make sure that this information is absolutely known. You know, I'm speaking for me as a resident of this community, I'm extremely frustrated in finding that our law enforcement services are continuing to diminish because costs are increasing, and we're sitting on $400,000 of COPS money that could have augmented those services, and yet here we are. And so anyway, that's the same but separate issue. Obviously, we need to, we've made a commitment to reimburse the sheriff's department for the purchase of these 2 vehicles. I'm saddened it's in the COPS, and Frank, I don't know if you can weigh in, is purchasing equipment vehicles permissible under the cops grant, or is it dedicated to increasing levels of service? Like if we were gonna add an additional officer, obviously we could buy the vehicle that would allow that officer, but can it go toward the replacement of existing fleet?
Yeah, it's not the cops funding, as I understand it, it can be used pretty flexibly. It just doesn't have to be used like an impact fee where it can only go to new or impacted like development. I think it can broadly be used for police protection services in general, whether that's existing or supplementing, what have you. That's my understanding.
And my understanding also, is that the Zinfandel money was to go to fire and cops.
Mhm.
We never decided how that was gonna get split. I mean, 50-50 would make sense, but, it could be any, 60-40, whatever we choose to do with that. That might come in, so that was my understanding from our DA. Back when we did it the day, so.
Yeah, and this was obviously new information that I learned this afternoon that was shared by the sheriff in his conversation with
Right.
one of our previous city managers, or the city manager at the time. And so we just,
Yeah.
it's not, nobody,
Yeah.
well, nobody in this room, so.
Well, we got this, we started getting this back in 1996, I think is when we started this process. So these monies have been coming a long time. It's not like a brand new in the last 4 or 5 years.
Correct.
My comment would be, to Councilmember Sim's point, that I think a further discussion as far as where is the money coming from and that sort of thing is gonna be relevant in a couple of weeks when our city manager is back and when we have our finance director here to really drill down and get some details on this sort of thing. I'm also wondering, is it possible that this, and I understand that we get the cops money of $100,000 a year, and I'm wondering, I have no idea, this additional money that seems to be accumulating in this account. Are we getting additional money every year, or was it a one-time lump sum that everybody got? Does anybody know?
Or is it Zinfandel Ridge money?
No.
No, it's not that. So
No.
we're getting more than 100,000 from the state.
I was able to get a ledger from the sheriff or the county late this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to go through it in detail, but it appears that there's been what's called a growth, all they have the word is growth. And every year it goes up. I mean, even looking at our budget this year, we're projecting $163,770 in cops revenue.
Okay,
So that's $63,000 more.
yeah,
So this year.
okay. Other than that, I think the question for tonight is, the agenda item is, do we want to authorize for the additional $49,706.30? And I have related questions, but for this particular item, I support that and would turn it over to the rest of the council for a motion, or not, or.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to authorize the additional $49,706.30. As citizens options for public safety cops funds. In addition to that, which was previously authorized in 2021 for the purchase of 2 sheriff's patrol vehicles in the combined amount of $206,139.46.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. We have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Emerson.
Aye.
Council Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
Abstain.
Mayor Ackerman.
Aye,
Motion passes.
thank you. Item 7.3, Receive report from City Council Sheriff, Contract Subcommittee. And, instead of a staff report, we'll have a report from the subcommittee.
And just for the record,
It's an ad hoc.
it's an ad hoc committee, not a subcommittee.
Okay,
Then does that verbiage need to be corrected in the,
Well,
on the agenda?
no, I mean. I just want to make it clear on the record that that's who the committee is, and that'll be reflected in the minutes.
Thank you.
okay, so if you don't mind, 7.3, just for the record, we're clarifying that the agenda item says receive report from City Council Sheriff Contract Subcommittee, when actually it's the City Council Sheriff Contract Ad hoc Committee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Been a while since we had a PowerPoint.
Which gets to staff and council, please. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just doing a presentation rather than me trying to break my neck like being a tennis referee. I chose to stand in front of you so I can at least look at you. Mike McLaughlin, Vice Mayor, with City Council, Plymouth City Council. I'm here tonight representing Councilmember Doug Sim and myself, who make up the Sheriff Contract Ad hoc Committee, and the work that we're doing. The goal of tonight is to talk through kind of where we are at this point and seek direction going forward, because we're at a you know, I guess a critical point in needing some support or some direction from the council. Next slide, please. First, just talking a little bit about our methodology, right? That something that we committed to is we quickly identified that any records relating to the history of the police, the Plymouth Police Department, our town marshal, or whatever else, between floods and roof failures, that there's essentially no documents existing. And we figured before we completely lost history to history, that we would spend some time compiling the history of law enforcement in Plymouth, and I'll share some of that with you this evening. That we research potential new revenue opportunities, identify and resolve any legal questions that may arise, identify the potential service providers who could be considered going forward, quantify the fiscal outlook for the city of Plymouth, conduct public meetings and solicit input, request for proposals / qualifications process, negotiations with the most responsive bidders, and then ultimately awarding of the contract. Next slide, please. I'd like to, I guess, begin by giving really a special thank you to Mike Sullivan, who is a resident of Plymouth, who has served on our planning commission for a number of years. And he's been instrumental in helping pull together the history of law enforcement as it's been in Plymouth. We're very fortunate to have Mike volunteer to help us with this work, in that he worked for the sheriff's department. He actually served as one of the deputies for Plymouth about 20 years ago. And so he has some knowledge, he had relationships. He's been really instrumental in helping us pull this information together. Would also like to thank Tom Mickelson, who is a retired police lieutenant from the Bay Area, who's a Plymouth resident, who also coincidentally serves on our planning commission, who's been instrumental in helping us to identify some other funding options that may exist for law enforcement entities. So just wanted to do a shout out to them, because their work has been invaluable in helping us compile some of the information we'll be presenting with you this evening. Next slide, please. So the history of policing in Plymouth. I'm just going to quickly go through a snapshot. We're in the process of compiling a more comprehensive report that we'll provide at a future date, but you know, working and compiling that information, and I'm not Dean Koontz, and so the writing is a bit slower. So Plymouth, as we know, was incorporated in 1917, and it was known that motherlode towns pretty much had an elected resident town marshal or city marshal. You know, we don't have any records indicating what existed, but that was the typical practice that existed up and down the motherlode at that time, as you know, gold rush and everything else. So it needed a little bit of law. Nineteen thirty-two was the first documentation of the city of Plymouth having a town marshal and or chief of police. It's used interchangeably depending on the documents. A lot of this information has been able to be obtained through archives with the Ledger Dispatch newspaper, which fortunately has an amazing history dating back. At an unknown date between 1932 and 1966, the Plymouth Police Department was formally established. It went from just a marshal in town to ultimately becoming a formal police department. We do not have a specific date. In 1966, there was one full-time person police department, and at the time they were considering reducing to part-time due to financial constraints. So it's just interesting the nature of this. You'll find about every 25 years we have the same conversation. In the 1980s, Plymouth operated a one or two person police department through the early 1980s. It kind of fluctuated. Sometimes it was one, sometimes it was two, but it was pretty consistent through that. In 1985, the Hartford Insurance Company, recognizing or identifying risk associated with insuring law enforcement agencies, did a last minute significant increase to liability insurance as it pertained to law enforcement. The city was unable to renew that policy. Ultimately, in 1985, the fire chief or the police chief resigned, and the city of Plymouth Police Department was disbanded permanently in 1985. Next slide, please. Since 1985 and the disbandment of the Plymouth Police Department, the Amador County Sheriff has been consistently providing law enforcement up to the current present time. The mid-1980s into the 1990s, there were 5 hours of patrol in the city per day. In 1993, Sheriff Blake, part of his campaign was to commit one full-time deputy to the northern part of the county, and ultimately that position was put in place. The role of this individual was to be essentially the liaison to the cities or function as the city's police chief, if you will. Community policing, problem solving, emergency response, and attending council meetings were some of the tasks that were outlined that this individual is responsible for doing. From 1997 to 2001, the contract for 5 hour police services continued over the 24-hour, 5 hours of police services per 24-hour period. And then it outlines from 98, 99, 2000, 2001, the amount of general fund money the city of Plymouth allocated toward this purpose. Next slide, please. So in 1996, through AB 3229, the Citizens Option for Public Safety or COPS funds came into existence. It's unclear how much money the city received initially, if any, because generally a lot of the money went to bigger jurisdictions that could demonstrate the need. Ultimately, in 2001, the COPS program was restructured that said every city, regardless of its size, that is responsible for law enforcement services will receive $100,000. And so in 2001, the city of Plymouth began receiving COPS grants in the amount of $100,000. The 2001 contract with the sheriff was to provide a previous general fund allocation, which was the 72,000, sorry, small print, bad eyes, not to exceed $100,000 plus the COPS revenue. This provided 2 full-time deputies assigned to Northern Amador County, and that the SO office created the Sheriff's Department ultimately created an office here at City Hall. Yeah.
So it was a total of $178,000 they were receiving?
Yes, that's what the city was contributing to law enforcement services from 2001 to about 2005, yes.
Thank you.
In 2005, the contract structure changed to provide for the city of Plymouth. It would be 9/10 of one deputy, with, in essence, the other 1/10 of the deputy being paid for by Amador City. And the one deputy with passing patrols, dispatch services, and it was identified not to exceed $100,000 of the COPS revenue. And this eliminated the use of any general fund monies used toward law enforcement in the community. There was an auto renewal every 5 years, and the levels of service versus increased cost, as I mentioned in our previous item tonight, have continued to decrease, as Sheriff Redmond noted in that 2021 staff report, that we were currently basically a half deputy equivalent because of the increased costs. And it's inappropriate for other communities in Amador County to subsidize or supplant the law enforcement services in the city of Plymouth, right? And so there's a balance to be walked through. Then on September 6th, 2023, obviously since 2025, the contract is automatically renewed every 5 years to bring us to this point. On September 6th, 2023, we received a letter from Sheriff Redmond requesting to open the contract for discussions before the contract expiration in April of 2025, which is ultimately what was a triggering event that brought us, this committee together and doing the work for you tonight. Next slide, please. So revenue opportunities, just for complete transparency and being out in front in terms of the public and participating, that we did not, will not, and with anything, consider any assessments, taxes, or any other potential cost increases to the city of Plymouth. That, in terms of finding revenue, those are all things that were completely out of bounds. For one, it wasn't council direction, but two, I also want to take this opportunity to be abundantly clear that that is not something that any of us are collectively as a body looking at. The Citizens for Public Safety revenue this slide ultimately changed late this afternoon because we had it listed as 100,000, where it's projected to be 163,000 this year, increasing and going forward. The work that Tom Mickelson has done, we identified 10 new potential grant opportunities. However, each of these grant opportunities are either to provide equipment, such as cars or traffic safety stuff, or to support programs like DUI checkpoints and everything else. There's nothing in there that would support adding additional officers, law enforcement type of approach. COPS grant is the one and only, and we are currently at our max allocation based off our population. The next will talk into a little bit of the legalities of things, some legal questions. Next slide, please. So the first question, one of the first questions we raised as we moved into things based off of information that was received is that are we required as or can we use COPS money as the primary fund, or are we required to have a general fund allocation? Because as we know, since 2005, we've solely been using COPS funds to fund law enforcement. And we, as a city, are required as part of the COPS program to maintain have a maintenance of effort, if you will. Meaning this, we were paying at one point, I know it's 79,000, don't know if it ever went up from there, but absolute minimum, that should have continued throughout the grant period. And we have a contract that ultimately nullified or erased any general fund allocation. This is obviously something we need to address going forward, but I think based off of what we've talked about and the need of enhancing and being able to provide a reasonable modicum of law enforcement protection in the community, that we're going to need to look at the general fund no matter what. But we identified that that's problematic in the scope of the COPS program overall, is that we should have been paying a general fund allocation all along. Is there a minimum amount of the general fund money the city must dedicate to law enforcement? In this particular case, with regard to the COPS grant, it goes back to that maintenance of effort, right? We can't do less than what we were providing at the highest point when we received, that COPS money. We can't go backwards. And then from the monetary aspect of things, can the city seek proposals for law enforcement services contracts from other cities in the area that provide law enforcement services? And the answer on that obviously is yes, but the subsequent piece came off of it based off of personal experiences I've had, where it talks about a neighboring agency. We're able to contract with neighboring agencies, but I've run into situations in my professional career where neighboring was interpreted to be having a contiguous boundary. We've asked the question and received the input that it does not need to be a contiguous boundary. That is not specific. And moreover, that in this case, we're not doing a consolidation, but rather we're doing a contract for services that we provided before. We're looking to continue that contract for services. And so LAFCO, the last two questions are basically LAFCO doesn't have a role in this process because we're not doing a consolidation or changing government structure. We're simply contracting with another agency to provide a service that we have already provided and have consistently provided through contract over a period of time. Next slide, please. And so hopefully you can read this. It looked great until Brenda did it. And so this is one of the things that I'm going to be asking for direction from the city council on this evening. And this is a proposed timeline, working ourselves backwards. So from right to left, we know that the current contract with Amador County Sheriff expires in April of 2025. That moving ourselves back, that as an ad hoc committee, we're recommending that we need to be able to award the contract by October 31st, 2024 to give 6 months of a transition. We do not know at this point if it's going to be Amador County Sheriff, Sutter Creek, CHP, Jackson, Ione. All of these agencies are going to be solicited for their input and participation, but we need to prepare for that window of transition to where a department can hire or do whatever they need to do to be prepared to take over the contract. So our recommendation is to be able to award the contract at that particular point. And in order to do that, we would need to use basically all of September and October for negotiations of a contract with basically proposals or requests for proposal or requests for qualifications beginning August 1st, due like August 31st, and then giving it 2 months to be able to work that information through. That we're recommending as a committee, an ad hoc committee, to do 2 public town hall meetings to solicit feedback and input. But and as I'll talk in a minute, the timing is important, but we're just seeking concurrence from the council. If you'd like to see more, if you'd like to see less, looking for direction of what you'd like to see there. And then really the key, and I'll touch more on the council direction needed on the next slide. But over the next 2 months, we really need to firm up a solid fiscal projection for the minimum of the next 5 years in order to be able to do any of this work going forward. And then we find ourselves here tonight, starting the timeline starting tonight, where we're providing a report to you and seeking your direction. Next slide, please. And so the 5 asks that we have before you is to discuss, provide input, feedback, and ultimately approve a timeline so that we can establish deadlines and things that we need to do in order to meet the target dates. We need a 5-year fiscal projection. This is something, that I know as a council member brought up the need for, recognizing we had to get a budget in place, but it's something that's been discussed. It's been brought up as a priority for this current fiscal year. And frankly, as a committee, we can't go forward and do anything until we know where we're going to be financially. Because we wouldn't be negotiating with anybody in good faith if we don't know where we're going to be, financially. Obviously, we have the new information of the COPS grant and how that's going to come into play, how that's going to factor into things. And what we need to do is establish, my hope is that once we have the 5-year projection, my hope, and this would be obviously with approval of the council, is that we would be able to have a closed session with pending negotiations to be able to discuss what are our potential guardrails for that financial framework, right? So we have a general dollar figure that we have a window that we can negotiate in, but not something that we would necessarily do in public unless we have to, and I'll defer to our legal counsel on that. But then that would be something that would then, in order to be able to have our public meetings, we have to have a reasonable idea of what our dollar figure is. Because if we were to sit out today and open public meetings and ask what they would like to see for law enforcement coverage, we could see anything in the entire spectrum. Some things we couldn't afford if we were the city of Sacramento. Other things, what is a reasonable level of, and so that in our town hall meetings, we can set the conversations up for success, recognizing what some of the limitations are, what some of the potential costs would be. And it's really going there's not really gonna be a whole lot of play in it, but soliciting the feedback, soliciting the input and being able to have the conversation may open doors for new and creative ideas that we may be able to incorporate going forward. From that, based on the town hall meetings and the budget limitations, my recommendation would be the council come together and potentially in closed session again and put together an RFP or an RFQ process. My recommendation in this, this isn't to me, our recommendation is a request for qualifications process. A request for proposal process is we would outline very specific parameters, when we want coverage, how we want it, standing on your head, standing on your left foot, standing on your right foot. Very, very, very specific, requesting people or entities to provide a quote on how much it would cost for us to provide that. Where a request for qualification is a much more open approach, that we're looking for law enforcement services with certain parameters and outlining within those parameters and putting it out and soliciting feedback, where it's a much more open and dynamic and fluid process. Still transparent, but it doesn't put us in the onus of creating something that we don't have the internal expertise of writing the RFP for, but giving us the ability to rely on the law enforcement entities we're reaching out to tell us how we should be doing it, instead of us telling them how we want it to be, if that makes sense, right? So going out, coming back. So the hope would be, providing direction on that. And then the last piece would be seeking clarification on who or what would be leading the negotiations for the city. Would this be, just every city is a different place? Is it the city manager that's going to be doing the negotiation with the most responsive proposals? Or is that going to be the ad hoc committee with a city manager? Just getting an idea of what the city council would like to see those, so we can be preparing for that day, that opportunity when that comes. And so just to recap, what we really need help is approval of a timeline. We need to, provide council direction of, we need to absolutely prioritize, in my opinion, obviously seeking your direction and input on it, but we absolutely need to prioritize the 5-year projection, because at this point, there's nothing for the committee to do going forward until we have an idea of what we're going to be, our revenue and expenditures are going to be looking like over, the next 5 years. And then, obviously following that, where we may have to have some very difficult conversations to see where we stand as a city and financially. And then your input on whether 2 town hall meetings would be appropriate, if you'd like to see more or less. And then whether we do an RFP or an RFQ process, and I would suspect that'd probably be a recommendation from the city manager, because that would be more of the administrative side. And she's not able to be here. We have a few months before that being paid. And then the last being seeking clarification on who the council would like to see, leading the negotiations, whether it be the ad hoc committee or the city manager, or, where in the ad hoc committee supports the city manager. For me, I don't care one way or another. I just for the sake of everybody, making it clear so that we can anticipate and prepare appropriately. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and facilitate any part of the requested direction.
Can I start? Mayor?
Let me officially open this to public comment first before it goes to the council. I assume we have no written public comment on this. So is there anybody in City Hall who would like to make a public comment? Nobody in City Hall, so I'll close it to public comment. And if it's okay with you guys, I think.
Yep, he serves on the committee with
Council. Yeah, good point. It's all yours, Councilmember.
Well, I want to thank the Vice Mayor for a fantastic presentation. You've hit every possible point I think that you could hit. Also want to thank Mike Sullivan for a terrific history of policing in Plymouth. It goes a long ways back. It does show a history of kicking the can down the road. We constantly find ourselves at this crossroads, whether it be our police contract or whether it be our infrastructure or whatever. And we just seem to have a very poor history of saving up for a rainy day. And here we are again. And your presentation was terrific. You hit all the bullet points. I hope that I hope the council can give some suggestions on where we go forward. I think it definitely needs to be put out to the public so the public can have input, and whether it be 2 or 3 or whatever, it's very important. And I'd like to add a little more to what you said, but you covered it beautifully. Thank you. Well done.
Thanks, sir.
Councilmember White, questions, comments? Historical knowledge?
First off, I'd like to thank both Councilmember Sims and Vice Mayor McLaughlin for all the time and the effort that they put into this. Quite the presentation. Thank you, Councilmember McLaughlin, for the presentation. It was amazing. The timeline, yeah, you ready for me to pick it apart? Because I can't. And why would I pick it apart? It's pretty spot on. You know, when you look at the timeline, what we need to do for it. As far as history goes, yeah, we've seen it diminish. And I don't want to sound like a negative on the history part of it, but as a young teenage man growing up in Amador County, I probably got pulled over once a week in Amador County, and I would say the majority of that was in Plymouth, and I can't remember the last time I saw a person pulled over in Plymouth. And I'm not saying that this is good or bad thing, I'm just saying that just showed the presence of law enforcement in Plymouth. And I was thinking about that the other day, like, well, it was common. I mean, you didn't see vehicles going 55 past Pilgrim, I'll tell you that much, and now you see it all the time. You didn't see people using our speed bump as to launch their, a catapult to launch their vehicles. So I definitely do think it should be open to the public. I think you're gonna get a lot more historical knowledge, and I think you might get a lot more of that. Well, wait a minute, we used to have this, why don't we have this anymore? And of course, I've always believed that there's power in numbers, so the more numbers that you have, the more input, maybe more ideas for funding and stuff too. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Councilmember Amoroso?
Well, how do I follow that? I concur. I mean, I can go say it all the same things. Thank you, Ken, wonderful. You know, I think it's important. I think these are the things that we need to, you know, really focus on now, because again, it's for our future also, right? So, I don't have much to add to that because, you know, I mean, like I said, thank you, Doug, and thank you, Mike, for really putting some time in this. It's impressive. I mean, it's nice to see all that. That's a lot of, and everyone else, Mr. Sullivan and everyone that was involved. Like I said, going forward, it's really important. And I think keeping it transparent, like I said, and get the public involved is going to be imperative. And I think the biggest thing is going to be our budget. Like you said, I think that is our number one. Yeah, to be fiscally responsible and make sure what we have to spend for law enforcement. You know, we have a very tight budget, and we walk that knife's edge of, you know, at all times with our budget. There's never a lot of big fat either way. Yeah. So, but that being said, yeah, so I support everything that you presented and think that that's the path forward for us. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, if I could just interject a few things.
Please.
As it relates to closed session, that's not gonna be possible. It's just not gonna fall within any of the closed session exceptions under the government code, and I just wanted to make that clear for the record. Now. And number two, as far as I don't have a contract in front of me, but I'm hoping maybe Doug or sorry, Councilmember Vice Mayor McLaughlin can answer. What is I know we're ending our 5-year renewal in April 25, what's the notice that we have to give? To not renew, or is it opt-in, we have to give notice if we're going to renew, and if we don't, it automatically expires, or is there an opt-out that we have to provide notice by a certain date or it automatically renews?
I think I have to go back and double check. My recollection is the contract automatically renews unless one or the other party gives a 12-month notice.
Ooh, 12 months.
Well, but the sheriff noticed us in September that they want to open the contract.
But did they give notice that they were terminating the contract?
Increasing it.
It was increasing.
But we just need to look at that, because we
Yeah.
may, in order to preserve the most flexible. Yeah, it could affect this timeline is all I'm trying to say, so that's the second point, we'll have to take a look at that. And number 3 is, as this is a small point, but just want to get out there. The distinction in my mind between RFP, you can actually have an RFP that's high level and invite solicitations and say, hey, we want police protection services in the city. We would like as much and robust as possible. Provide your proposal on what you can do and how much that's going to charge. We can do that in the context of RFP. RFQ is really trying when you're not really sure, like for example, a public works project, and you're not really sure if certain engineering firms have certain expertise that you need for certain types of projects. You ask for RFQ first, and then you can shortlist a set of firms, and then you can do an RFP based upon that RFQ. So all I'm saying, and I know we don't have to get in the weeds on that tonight, but I would just simply suggest you can still do RFP whenever it's done at a high level, and you can still solicit an open-ended proposal to tell us how you're going to provide police protection services and what the cost is going to be to the city. So that's all. I just want to get those 3 points out there.
I love having different attorneys in different jurisdictions.
Well,
That's why I asked.
yeah,
It's no discredit, it's
I'm
just
sure.
different marching orders.
Yeah, I'm sure the other person just didn't know.
That's perfect.
I guess I just want to add that, again, thank you, both of you, to the work you're doing on this, and this, your presentation is really helpful and interesting. But helpful, and I also want to thank, Mike Sullivan and Tom Mickelson, and, they volunteered their time to chime in on this, and I think we're very lucky in this community to have a wealth of knowledge and people who are willing to volunteer for the good of the community. So thank you to everybody involved. This is very important. Mike, I couldn't agree with you more that fiscal analysis for the next 5 years is important and critical, not just for this, but for everything.
For everything. Right?
Yeah. And otherwise timelines, things like that, fully support all of this. And I think both of you putting together the timeline is helpful. It's measurable. It's a timeline. It's good. Town hall meetings and to get public input. I think your suggestion of 2 meetings, that seems adequate to me, but that doesn't have to be written in stone. So if we give direction that, we all agree with 2 meetings, and then we seem to think that the community wants more, well then, we accommodate as appropriate. So that's not written in stone.
And when I was putting this together, one of the thoughts I had was maybe do one in an evening, commiserate with, 6:30 or 7, and then maybe one on a Saturday morning at 10. So depending on people's lives, it would provide some,
Right.
flexibility.
And then Frank, obviously, I don't have a copy of that letter in front of me, but I don't remember the letter that we received from the sheriff giving any type of notice, official notice. But
I have both with me. I'll catch you after the meeting.
Yeah, it could be just something as simple as could clarify with the sheriff the process we're under and the timelines and just kind of assuring that no one's gonna, you don't wanna be surprised 6 months from now that the sheriff would be taking a certain position on time. So we can I'll review what the vice mayor has and then if we have to, we can try to clarify. Get on the same page with the sheriff's office.
We don't want to be left without services, or we'll see Councilmember White speeding through town like
Betcha.
crazy.
Betcha.
Anyway, that's all I have to say, is that I think this is really helpful. Thank you for your work and your continued work. I guess one more thing that I do want to add, and we're not right there, but clarification, who will lead the negotiations. I am very pleased with our current ad hoc committee. I think the both of you, perfect. And working together with the city manager, who specifically does what, I don't know, that seems like it's splitting hairs, but certainly hope that both of you can continue with this, which I would imagine you're willing. So that's all I have to say. So I think that you're looking for direction.
I think they got it.
Yeah, I think the consensus is.
So just confirming the timeline as proposed is good until something changes.
Yeah.
Financial projection is the top priority that, obviously I'll package up and, reach out to Margaret. I'm sure, I know she did something that's in the works. And so Kathleen, we can share that. Town hall meetings, one on a weeknight, one on a weekday. We'll be doing an RFP and ad hoc committee.
Weekend day.
Weekend day.
You said weeknight, and weekday, then you mean weekend day.
Yeah, that.
Okay.
Glad somebody's paying attention, see? And then the ad hoc committee will lead with the city manager and support in negotiations. And, my intent obviously is things over the next few months will ramp up, is that reports will be more frequent, or they're gonna be part of obviously a 5-year discussion. We'll be having a discussion, but we'll be bringing back information more regularly because it'll be, as the time frame condenses a bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you see before we move on?
Moving.
Okay. Okay, what is now item 7.4 to approve the job classifications and pay rate for head lifeguard, and recreation aide. Yeah, this wasn't going to be an agenda item, so I don't expect a staff report. I was glad to see this moved as a regular agenda item. I'm certainly not opposed to the pay rate or the job descriptions or that sort of thing. I just want to make it clear that it's my feeling is that I think we need to, I think at a previous meeting, we gave direction to staff to move forward with exploring the possibility of doing this in-house versus through ACRA. In my opinion, my feeling is that I would like to see staff come back with additional information, or, policies, procedures, safety, and all that. So I just kind of wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, just to give you an update. So staff has already started to try to get a packet together for council on everything from rules and regulations, hours, all that type of information to bring back to you so you can see it. We really want to get back to swim lessons, which we've been lacking for the last couple of years. And trying to make the pool a more appealing place rather than just the pool. I mean, that part is nice, but if you've seen what some other districts and pools do, where the kids just aren't constantly free swimming, there's a little more interest going on. we'd also like to bring that to our pool too, so our pool is a more interesting place to be, other than just swimming back and. I have really high hopes. Maybe too high of hopes right now. Not sure we'll be able to implement everything that we've come up with for ideas, all in the first year. But one important thing that I really need to stress is just by sheer coincidence, I'm in the Amador County swim world and I've been there for years. And I can tell you, finding lifeguards in this county is not easy. Finding good lifeguards in this county, of course, is even harder. So as much as it would be nice to maybe have adults lifeguarding and things, the reality of this county is almost every lifeguard in the county in the summer is going to be between the ages of 15 and probably 19. And there's very few 18 and 19-year-olds. It's basically our high school group that is lifeguarding, but they are all required to go through a pretty demanding certification program. And most of them, I can't say all of them, but a majority of them are very familiar with the swim community, swimming pools, code of conduct at the pool, even teaching swim lessons, because the county swim team, as the kids move up, when they start being about 12, the ones that have any interest are really encouraged to be what they call junior coaches. And they start with the smaller kids, like the 3 to 6 year olds, and they start teaching them to swim under the guidance of swim coaches, really good swim coaches. So these kids, by the time they're 15, have already gone through 3 years of actual teaching swim lessons, in a sense. I mean, they're supervised by the coach, but I mean, they've kind of got a handle on it, believe it or not, which is pretty amazing. But between the swim team and the high schools, that's where your lifeguard pool is going to be. And you know, quite honestly, we don't have big teams. I mean, Amador and Argonaut, they have meets together because their teams are so small. So they have a 3-way meets every time they have a swim meet. Because it's just tiny teams. So you're generally looking at a pretty small group of people that every city needs some. So I just wanted to put that out there so you understand that's probably going to be a critical component to the success of our pool. So we're trying to jump on this as early as we can with the lifeguards. And staff has been putting a lot of extra time and effort into the actual pool facility right now. And hopefully in the next month or so, maybe we can get some before and after photos that we can share to show, you know, what Public Works has been up to out there, because they're making changes and they're doing a good job out there. So actually, the staff is pretty excited to do the pool.
Good, thank you. Any public comment on this? No public comment.
Did you close public comment?
I'm closing public comment.
Okay, I just want to clarify for the record, staff had made 2 changes to the job classifications since the agenda was posted. You have copies at the dais. There are copies of the revisions on the table. They're very small changes as it relates to the head lifeguard. It just clarifies that that person will work under the direction of public works staff. It had a typo there before that the head lifeguard would work under the head lifeguard, which is hard to implement. And then as far as the lifeguard position, it said that that person would work under the direction of the head lifeguard. and the public works staff specifically as opposed to any staff.
And the
then
age.
they changed the age limit from 16 to 15. So those were just two changes on the lifeguard one, and then one change on the head lifeguard job classification. And the other ones are just so you know that that's, if you were approving tonight, that's what you're approving. And then there's also one other change for the rate of pay, for the recreation aid. It says 15, but that actually has to be 16 an hour, because California minimum wage in 2024 just got bumped to 16 an hour. So if you approve the rate of pay for these three positions, the recreation aid would be 16 an hour. So just want to clarify that.
And the age change is specifically, because you can qualify to guard at 15. You can get a work permit at 15, and you are allowed to go through the course certifications at 15. You're not allowed to go through those any younger, but 15 is the age.
And then I thought I saw earlier in one of the job descriptions, I don't remember which one, something about that one of these positions could supervise up to 50 people. And so that's been removed, right?
That has been removed. There were a few typo type things that I cleaned up. Yeah, obviously there's not 50 people to supervise in the whole city.
Council discussion, Councilmember White, questions, comments, questions?
Pull this item, just to have the discussion on it. Yeah, I pretty much have one's answer, but yeah, I saw the 15 an hour and I was like, oh, wait a minute, no, it's 16 now. Yeah.
Still gonna ask a few of the fast food workers who get 20,
20, right?
unless they work there.
That honestly, that is a concern, because when you look at the levity of the job, I mean, you have somebody here that's say making $18 an hour, which 10 years ago would have been like, wow, well, I'm making $18 an hour. But you're asking these young people to take into their hands people's lives. I mean, they really need to be serious about their job, as opposed to, well, I could go to McDonald's and have $20 an hour, and I don't have that kind of responsibility. But the flip coin of that is a lot of these young people that lifeguard have a passion about swimming, and that draws them that direction. But yeah, it's gonna make things a little more difficult this year to hire if we can't compete.
I don't know, just because I run an office and this is something that we really had our thumb on in the last couple of years. I will say that it's hard to leave at the fast food market. If you haven't been into a fast food restaurant, go in there and look at the age group that's working. Not a lot of teenagers anymore. It's not a teenage job. Right, it said that whole industry's been changed. And I noticed that when I talk to the youth, they have a hard time finding work out there right now. So I think that I'm hoping that will help us.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, there's variations in every group. I do know that some of these kids that have been lifeguarding in this county, I think anybody would hire in a heartbeat if they came in and interviewed for another job, because they're so responsible and so on it. That they could go into pretty much anywhere and be a solid candidate.
Councilmember Amoruso?
I've really got nothing. It was all pretty self-explanatory. Thank you for clarifications and the typo fixes and all that, because I think that's important. And no, I think that's good.
Councilmember Sim,
Kathleen, apparently we have a contract with EPRA. And are we canceling the contract or are we modifying the contract?
It was my understanding that council chose to take the pool on as their own. Am I misunderstanding that? That's the understanding I got from Margaret, was that we
No,
were
that was
running our own pool.
That was the direction.
Are we canceling the contract correctly, so there's no violation in the contract, so the stuck hole in the bag, the money, so
As to my knowledge, it was an annual contract.
Okay.
Just like the after school program was, and those types of things. So I'm not sure if Margaret has reached out to ACRA or not.
big point.
But it would not make a lot of sense for us to provide staff and run the pool and have ACRA.
Rumors floated around a little bit that another city canceled Akron incorrectly, and they were in violation of the contract, and now they're owing Akron a large sum of money due to the fact that it's the way they canceled the contract. May have nothing to do with us, just throw it out there. Does Akron do other things for us other than that pool? Work?
They do some activities in town. They're gonna do a square dancing up at Lodge Hill. I think in I'm not 100% about this, but I do believe that we have an ACRA buy-in. It's a general buy-in into the ACRA community. And then we have specialized services like, say, the after-school program or the swimming pool. That are done in addition to the ACRA base buy-in. So I don't know if maybe that's what happened with the other city, is they dropped their base buy-in. And we'll have to find out, but I believe that's how it has gone in the past. The pool has always been like an extra component that we chose to participate in.
Well, obviously, we're going into the same pool of kids that Akron would.
Yes,
Come on.
we're going to the same pool kids
Every
as every
high school
city.
kids,
Every pool here is.
poor kids are driving all the way from Jackson and Sutter Creek to come here and work.
Some of them are, yes.
I'm guessing there's not many kids that are living right here.
I know two that actually live in, one in the city and one in unincorporated Plymouth. That might be interested in Plymouth because it's close to home. But yeah, we're all going after the same core of kids, yes. And so, teenagers have their own ideas. Some of them prefer one pool to another for personal reasons. I think we have an amazingly wonderful pool. If you ask my daughter, she will tell you it's the cleanest pool in the county, and she knows she's in all of them.
It's a great pool, you're right.
It's a pretty pool, and it's kept really well by our staff. So hopefully that will be one of the buy-ins for some of these kids to get into a nice pool. And Jackson Pool is just extremely busy. So if you guard there, you're gonna have a crazy busy day because they have a lot of people in that pool.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I wasn't able to be a part of the discussion at the last meeting. I was celebrating February 22nd. It's also our 32nd anniversary, and I was celebrating it with my lovely bride. And so unfortunately I was not part of it. Yeah, absolutely love the vision. I know that we've had issues with the ACRA and coverage and opening and real or imagined, right? There's been some stuff. I love the ability for us to take ownership and love the vision. And I've got some points, some thoughts that I want to share. First, just a question for Frank: is consensus of the council, which is what transpired last month, sufficient for us to terminate the contract with Acura to move forward? Or does it require a more formal?
Well, I think the contract with Acro was something that we had to re-up and agree to every year. It was a seasonal contract we did every year. So I think what precipitated the last conversation with council, Margaret had basically said that Acro reached out and wanted to know if we were gonna re-up. And she wanted to know whether to tell them no or not. So I assume those conversations happened and it's understood, but I can double check with Margaret when she gets back on that piece.
Great, thank you, and, yeah, that would make sense. For me, again, going back, I absolutely love the vision, I absolutely. I can feel your passion, Kathleen, and the desire, and with that, you have my full support. My concern is. We're being asked to approve job descriptions for positions and pay raise for positions, and we have no idea if we can even afford it. I've never seen a budget, I've never seen expense and revenue. Can we do this with increased insurance, the responsibility, the liability for the 27,500 we have budgeted for the contract with APRA and be able to deliver an equal or hopefully better product? And because we are, I don't know, beat this drum a few times tonight on different subjects. We are walking a razor's edge on monetarily, right? We're not a rich city. We're gonna be losing the Shenandoah Inn. If the casino goes forward, there's gonna be TOT, going away, right? Maybe it's gonna be replaced by a new hotel, but we're not increasing the amount one would replace the other in theory. And for me, I've done lots of presentations to initiate programs and for me, this is just disjointed, right? This to me, it should have started from the monetary. This is how we can do it. This is how we can afford it. Here's how we staff it. This is what we project for expenditures. This is what we project for revenues. Here's what we project for savings, because certain staff is going to cross serve, as it's mentioned, I think, Seamus, but there's no budget or plan of how we're actually gonna be able to do it, right? But we have job descriptions for something that we don't know we can do. And so now we as a council are in a big pickle, not to, I guess, to reuse a term, is we either re-up with Acra yesterday or we go forward, but we don't even know if we can afford to go forward because we've never seen, for me, I've never seen any numbers to say that we can even do this. Can we afford a head lifeguard at $21 an hour? I don't know, but right now for me, it's all anecdotal. That information should be here. And us asking us to make this decision because we're being asked to make decisions with incomplete information. Even in the staff report that says there's no financial impact, but there is a fiscal impact. If we go this direction, this is gonna cost us something. Maybe it's within our current allocation, and I could guess that since we wouldn't be paying Acra overhead, it may be within our allocation, but we're also gonna be paying more for insurance as opposed to Acra covering the insurance, potentially.
Yeah, if I can just address that. So we pay the insurance on that pool regardless of what Acra is doing in the pool. We're still in line to pay for anything on the pool. Secondly.
Can I just explain why that's the
Sure.
case? The city is part of a joint powers risk pool for general liability services. It's gonna cover all sorts of city activities and functions and properties. Whether we're operating the pool or whatever the third party is, so yeah, there shouldn't be a hit on our actual insurance premiums.
Good.
So just the basic idea of how it works with Acra at the pool. So as it is right now with Acra, you are paying for the lifeguards. You're paying for a pool manager. And they are taking all the entry receipts and profits as well. So if you look at that, and we have kind of created a different setup. We would have been paying for 2 lifeguards. We still are, granted at a different rate, I understand that. But the pool manager is now going to be pretty much pulled into Seamus's activities because he is the certified pool operator. So we're going to shift staff a little bit so he has more time at the pool site. So the pool manager position would be dropped and replaced with the recreational aide, which is a much lower level position than a pool manager. And we're gonna pay Seamus for his full-time activity, regardless of where we choose to staff him at. He is a full-time position. So if we rotate a few responsibilities around, so he's at the pool pretty much most of the time during the summer, that's not incurring an extra cost. So I can't guarantee you that it's gonna come out exactly even, but if you look at, we will be able to keep our receipts for any entrance fees or other fees at the pool. And we've already been talking about starting up a snack bar and things like that, which will bring in some more pool receipts, because one thing that really I don't care for as a mom is my child leaving my child at the pool and my child leaving the pool to go get a snack. And I don't know it. So, I mean, there's a window of opportunity there. Like I said, it's gonna be a learning curve. I can't guarantee you that it's a perfect 1-for-1, but I think it will be pretty close. Because when you take out the ACRA fees and the fact that they also were able to take gate and everything else, we do a lot of maintenance, but we really don't get a lot other than just the fact that they have lifeguards at the pool back, in my opinion.
And so I think we're saying the same thing. But where's the budget, right? Right now it's anecdotal, right? It's saying, trust me, I've got this, right? Versus we should be able to look at it and say, we're gonna be open this number of days, this many hours. We're gonna need this number of staff per day, X number of recreation aides, X number of lifeguards, head lifeguard. Here should be our expenses for the season. We anticipate ticket revenues of such. We should be, our proposed budget comes in at 21,000, whatever, right? But we're making a leap of faith, and forgive me for not just trusting, but I got completely blindsided on the cops issue yesterday and had a conversation with a sheriff today that had no idea that we were getting extra money. So I'm a bit skeptical, I'm a bit pessimistic, and I'm a bit concerned about, trust me on the money when we're finding out things piecemeal. And so that's my overarching concern on this. I love the direction we're going, but we need to present a comprehensive program that has a budget and what it will look like and the layout and how we're going to address. I mean, all of the things that you talked about we're doing should be, we don't need the things per se, but hey, here's what we're working as a comprehensive proposal. And if you approve it, then we're gonna bring all these pieces back to you, as opposed to last meeting was getting consensus. This meeting's, a job specification and a salary. What are we gonna know? So.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and the reasoning behind this particular item is that, okay, high school swim has already begun. It's been going. County swim starts in April. The training classes are gonna start in April. Unfortunately, the time frame for the lifeguards is gonna come up and hit fast. By May, they will all have secure places. And that was one thing I was gonna go try to find out. Was to see what Jackson was doing, because Jackson typically has been the strongest pool in the county. I know last year they were paying $16.50, $17, or somewhere in there for a regular general lifeguard, not for a head lifeguard. So I don't think we're like way out of bounds on that. But if we sit back on setting ourselves up for positions at the pool, by the time we get to the table, we might not be able to supply what we need. So that's kind of the push on this. And I do understand what you're saying, and yes, to some degree, we are asking you to give just a little tiny leap of faith on this lifeguard issue. Because it's a scramble to get certified lifeguards in this county. We don't have like huge, a good example is our county swim team. We go to a swim meet, we might bring 100 swimmers, and that's everything from 3 years old to 18. And we'll swim against teams that have brought 300 swimmers. And that's the same type of scenario with the high schools. So you're just, your pool of parties that would be typically doing this job is just very, very small. And I believe there's Ion Pool, there's Cedar Creek Pool, there's Jackson Pool, and there's Plymouth Pool. So everybody's gonna be trying to get a piece of those guards. And I know it doesn't sound like that much for 4 pools, but when you look at how many guards there will be, it gets to be a scramble.
Put out a what if we go with the status quo this year? And we get all of our ducks in a row and we start actively recruiting lifeguards in January of next year, instead of finding ourselves behind the Powerball and doing things piecemeal and backwards. I just thought another option. Maybe that's more anecdotal or rhetorical than anything. So it seems like we've created unnecessarily created an emergency. We're doing things without a budget when we have. I'm not saying this isn't a priority. I believe in this with all my heart and soul. I want to see that pool flourish. And so I want to be very clear. It's the business, the procedural things that have me concerned, right? We talked in the last presentation about a 5-year projection. I've been asking for a 5-year projection since I joined council a year and a half ago. That doesn't seem to be a priority, but this has become an emergency. And we don't have, emergency is not necessarily a great word, but it's become an urgency. And the time frame to get something done, I think this is a great thing, but we don't have our ducks in a row. I don't know how much this is gonna cost. I don't know how many hours it's gonna be, but you're asking me to approve it. You know, hoping for the best isn't the plan, right? For me, plan for the worst, hope for the best, but we don't have a plan. We're just hoping for the best. And I'm sorry, I have a hard time with that, and I'll stop there. I've taken plenty of time.
No, that's okay. I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from. But if we go back to Akron for the summer, you will still incur lifeguard costs.
Mhm.
One way or another. It's not an either or. It is a thing. And lifeguards, Akron's in the same place as everybody else is. If they come back and they're trying to pay minimum wage for guards, the guards aren't gonna go there. The guards are gonna go somewhere else. So I would anticipate that their price for guards, their costs to pay their guards are gonna go up this year like everyone else's.
Doesn't Acra also do an upcharge for their administration? So there's those costs on top?
I believe they have admin fees for
Yeah.
everything they do for us.
Yeah.
And like I said, they also take all our gate fees.
Right.
They used to do snack bars. For whatever reason, they stopped doing it. I don't know why. But when they did snack bars, we didn't get that money either. So in the past, when we have Acra, we pay Acra to service the pool, and then anything that they get at the pool, they take as well. So we're left with all the maintenance fees.
So
But it's okay, I mean, it's one of the few things the kids have in Plymouth. And, you know, I think it's very important that all the kids learn how to swim, at least be able to get in and move across. I had a really personal experience where I saved a child from drowning, and it's really stuck with me. And it's probably why one of my kids is a swimmer, because the poor kid, since she was teeny tiny, got drugged to every pool in this county all summer long for swim lessons. She swam in all the pools, just one after another lesson. So that's kind of my own little hang up on this, but I get what you're saying completely. And there has to be, you know, if I come back with figures, you might not like all the figures, because I would love to say all the kids should come for free and they should all get free swim lessons, and that would be awesome. But that might not keep the pool out of the red.
But we don't know.
We don't, well, I pretty much do know that the cost of that pool is very pricey. And it's not about the summer swim, it's about just maintaining a swimming pool. And so if you are looking at the pool as being a moneymaker, or even breaking even, I don't think you're ever gonna see that, because it is really expensive to run that pool. But I would hate to see something happen.
Pools aren't moneymakers. Thank you.
Well, I want to start by saying I somewhere along the way misunderstood. At the prior meeting, when we gave direction, I thought that we were giving direction on moving forward as far as exploring this and coming back with plans and that sort of thing. So I misunderstood that we were giving direction to actually implement this, but you know, that's okay. That's that was my misunderstanding. A question, I don't expect you to answer this, but I thought I'd just throw it out there. Any idea how much like weekly entrance receipts are daily? That's any idea? And if you don't know, that's okay.
No, I don't know, and I can't say that. I'm not sure if the city ever even requested that information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't wanna say that it wasn't given to us, I'm not sure we've ever even requested it.
Yeah. And as everybody probably knows, I'm on the ACRA board, and maybe that information was presented to us at one point, just off the top of my head, I don't remember. A couple of things I want to mention, that the current ACRA executive director has resigned. His last day is, I don't know, March 30th or something. I was not at yesterday's ACRA meeting, so I don't have an update now on, you know, if they've hired somebody, if they're interim or anything like that. I don't know, that could be significant one way or another. A thought that I have is, and listening to you, Vice Mayor McLaughlin, a lot of it resonates with me. I'm never quite comfortable, in my life. I've made too many rush decisions. I'm uncomfortable with rushing to make a decision without having all the information that I think I need to make a well-informed decision. I would like more information on a budget for all of this, before I'm comfortable making a decision. And I realize the candidate pool, pardon the pun, isn't big, and we're competing with other cities. I also wonder, you mentioned earlier that lifeguards will be hard to find. Good lifeguards will be even more difficult to find. And I think we all agree, we want good lifeguards, we want the best, right? So I'm wondering, in the $21 an hour, could there be, do we need to explore some flexibility? $21 an hour if you have no experience as a lifeguard. Maybe $22 an hour, I'm just throwing it out there. If if this is your third year in our pool, if you have experienced that sort of thing. So I don't know, I think I'm just kind of thinking out loud and.
So basically, the $21 an hour is only for a head lifeguard. The rest are all down at 18.
Okay, right,
So it's not every lifeguard.
right,
And the age requirement, we made 16 instead of 15.
Yeah.
Because we felt like nobody who's starting lifeguarding should be a head lifeguard.
yeah,
So we upped it there. But that is the one position where we expect them to lead the other lifeguards and take some supervisory role to it.
yeah. I also wonder what are the other cities gonna be paying and offering and.
So mine, but
Yeah,
it's kind of a touchy subject because I really can't call Jackson and say, hey, what are you gonna pay your lifeguards so I can pay ours more?
Right, I get it.
So somebody did give me a heads up, there might be something on the ION site. So I was gonna go on there and see if there were any lifeguard positions showing up on there. So I could get an idea of where the other pools are at, because basically that's what you want. You want to be,
Competitive,
you don't want to be crazy high and you don't want to be crazy low. You want to be,
right,
right in the tack there.
right, we wanna recruit good people and retain people. So those are my only comments, so making the decision on this tonight, for me personally, makes me a little bit uncomfortable.
Well, I might have a solution.
Oh,
So,
love that,
I appreciate what Mike said and, everyone, I think it's true. I think being fiscally responsible is very important to our city. As with the cops and everything else that we do, right? And we have to be fully there. I know you know the numbers. And I don't think it'd be that hard for you to put a budget together between now and our next meeting.
No.
So I think if you could bring us back, I don't know, this, if, cause to keep this ball rolling, we've already gone through one process. And, whether it was understood or misunderstood, but what that was to do. I think that we could say, why don't you bring it back? A full budget and a breakdown and a comparison to Accra, what the cost, between the two are. And then that way, we just table it, I think, this weekend or this meeting. And then bring it back to the next meeting and then have that information to then make the informed decision. And I think we stay on timeline. And we get too far behind the ball at this point.
Yeah.
So that's my suggestion.
I like that.
I agree. I think if you saw our bills to Accra for the summer.
Oh, yeah, no, I've seen.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody has, they're not small. And
Accra
like I
goes,
said, they don't,
Accra goes up and up and up every year on everything. I mean, we know for the schooling program, right?
right,
After school program.
and what Accra brings is not. It is just basically
Basics.
the basic lifeguard pool manager staff. We provide everything and we take care of all the pool maintenance. So that's not gonna change whichever direction we go. Because I guarantee you Accra's not going to take on those other bills. So yeah, I can come back with last year's payables to Accra compared to what lifeguard staff would be if we took it on. And then that way you can see if I'm in the ballpark or if I'm out of bounds. Would that help, Mike?
Yeah, for me, it's not the what, it's the how, right? It's
Right,
like,
no,
if you saw the accurate, like you said, if you saw the accurate bills, you'd know, oh, okay, show me the accurate bills, right?
Right, yeah.
It's, I mean, that's my,
And I
that's my
get,
point, it's like, it's-
again,
I
We have
think
all
it's,
that.
it's making the business case.
I-
Let's lay out the business case, let's lay out the budget.
I
implementation
understand,
plan.
I
Oh,
was given a particular direction. And quite honestly, there's a lot of things going on and everybody in this building is super busy. So I followed my direction and I did put, the extra thought out there right now. But I see where you're coming from and I can certainly get last year's ACRA bills. And I can calculate out with what our salaries would be in comparison, but just so you know too, I mean, I've been given this open book without really any guidelines. If you, as the council say, I want that pool open 7 days a week, well, that's gonna change everything.
Sure.
Because ACRA wasn't 7 days a week, ACRA was 5 days a week. Or if you want extended hours, so when I come back, I'm gonna have to do it apples to apples, what ACRA was offering you.
Right.
To make it make sense.
Right.
But just so you know, if you wanted to provide something more, that's gonna change the numbers.
Right, for sure, but we can extrapolate that easily,
Yeah.
because those are hard numbers.
Are you comfortable with it? If we do this 2 weeks from now, do you have enough time to find lifeguards, or we're getting real late, I know, we're in the middle of March right now.
I will make the time because if the city's gonna take it on, you really don't wanna end up with lifeguards that are having a hard time finding a space, you know what I mean? They're kids, they are, and a lot of them mean really well and try really hard, but like anything else, there are ones that excel more than others.
There's no doubt we're backing into this thing right now, okay, we're backing into it. And I can't imagine that our costs are gonna be higher than we paid ACRA last year with their profits. And they're taking the gate, right?
Mhm.
How can we possibly, even with a couple more days a week, how can we possibly go beyond where we paid last year? I know, we're backing into it. Next year, I think we should start way earlier than this and do what the vice mayor and the mayor said, have a budget. But as far as I'm concerned, I think we're a little bit late in the game for all that. I think we're gonna have to take a little leap of faith here in the hopes that ACRA didn't do this for nothing. And if we're under ACRA's cost last year, and I think we all want to maintain this pool, I think we're unanimous on that. I think we'll be okay as long as we cut the gate. And I think we should, hopefully, we'll be less than they were last year.
Right.
To us, their charges to us. How much did we pay last year?
I can't give you
Was it
specific
around
numbers,
27,000?
but I recall 8,000 something a month.
Right, no $8,000 in labor fees.
For the 3 months,
It's pretty much a 3-month season.
it was about 25,000.
3 is twice.
I mean,
That was-
it varies back and forth, but I would say if my memory is correct, the average is probably around 8,000 something dollars a month.
I realize you can't confuse the various issues, but when I started thinking about water tanks that cost $4 million and infrastructures that cost $18 million, we're talking about $2,000 or $3,000 difference in whether we can go forward with this without ACRA or not. I mean, we're talking about not a lot of money here in the difference between what we paid last year and what potentially if we pay more this year. How could it be very much? Seriously, but I agree, we're doing this all backwards. We need a budget. But I think we're getting a little late in the game for that, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, just so you understand too, if we take on the pool, then we have more control. ACRA hasn't been doing swim lessons for a few years now. I don't know with the new executive director coming in, how that's gonna go. But I can kind of tell you, they took Jackson's pool because Jackson kind of had a little internal, surprise. The person that had been running that pool for years and years and years retired and they kind of got all. And they took Akron for the year. And one of their big things was that Akron did no swim lessons and Jackson does an extreme amount of swim lessons. And the following year, Jackson took their pool back.
I do remember
So
last
they weren't
year,
happy with that.
they gave us a discount when they were unable to give us swim lessons, or when he came, what's his name, Jason came. And he gave us a little discount because obviously he couldn't provide swim lessons. But that's neither here nor there.
Councilmember White.
Okay, so before we pulled this item, I wasn't even thinking in the mindset that we're in. But now that we've pulled the item and we've dove into the discussion, and it has changed my whole mindset, of course, when we're getting into these things. With the history of the pool, there's been years that the pool's been closed, there's been different things with the pool. So I immediately, because what the pool means to me, come to the defense of, no matter what, we keep it open, we gotta do this to keep it open. And I don't use the mindset of being fiscally responsible, I should say, when I think about it. So I did just want to read a little bit of something, and I'm not gonna try to throw another city under the bus. This was January 30th, 2023 for the city of Ione. The subject was the 2024 recreation event calendar and plan. And this is for the pool, the fiscal impact, the pool operating costs, the operating cost of the pool for the 2024 season is estimated to be $41,146. And then the revenue from it was $32,480,000. Those are kind of simple numbers that we knew, but when we get into the pool plan and their recruitment, this is recruitment will begin on February 7th of 2024, pending council approval. And conclude on March 7th, 2024. We're already past that, so City of Ione's already worked on that.
Really.
You know, and it talks about swim lessons and the hours of the pool. When it will be open, how many blocks it will be open. I don't know, I kind of wish we had that information now, looking back and go, oh, whoa, there's a ton of information that, you know.
Well, it's all boilerplate.
Uh-huh.
It's all boilerplate.
Yeah.
Don't need to reinvent the wheel.
What's that?
So we don't need to reinvent.
I know we don't need to reinvent the wheel. My big thing is though, that 2 weeks, if we can have 2 weeks, I don't know if that's gonna be destructive of this or not. If we can have 2 weeks, I would love to have some numbers. I know we're beating this up pretty bad.
Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from,
Okay.
because I'm the one constantly putting the bills through for the pool.
Yeah.
So I get it, and I totally get it.
And none of us
So-
think that this is a moneymaker. We all know that this is for the
It's a
community.
community thing.
Yeah.
Right,
For sure,
unless you have a water park, I don't think you have a moneymaker anymore.
right?
So. I can't project the future, but, I can only tell you that, like I said, February makes sense because that's when the high school team starts swimming. And the county team is gonna be made up of their teenage group, is gonna be the high school swimmers that are also going to swim in the summer. And the county team is going to start in April. And, at that point, it could start getting dicey because those kids, some of them are probably gonna procrastinate a little bit. Because they're young and they're involved in what's going on in high school right now. So, I mean, you might be able to hold off a couple weeks. But I wouldn't suggest holding off on a decision longer than that. Because once it's get in a full mode and they're double swimming. It really becomes a life, or true lifestyle when you're swimming both teams, high school and county. And they're gonna be looking, they're hiring. Assistant coaches right now for the swim team, which is the same group of kids. It's just, you know, this same group of kids keeps repeating. So they're hiring them right now, which a lot of the kids do that because it's a morning thing, the swim team. And most of the guard positions for the city pools are an afternoon thing, so they kind of combine the two. To make a full-time job, so to speak, but yeah, I would be concerned if we go much farther out than 2 weeks. If you want to take on the pool, if you choose not to take on the pool, then that's an ACRA's lap. To figure out where they're going to their guards.
Why not a comparative? Get Akron a bid on this year with lessons, do your figures, come back in 2 weeks. There's nothing worse than go for them run for.
Go ahead, Denise, I'm sorry, this isn't open for public comment now.
So, what I was gonna suggest was, because it sounds like there's a lot of lead up time that has to be done to even get the lifeguards in the queue for trainings and stuff. I mean, all this is approving the job classifications and the pay. And you could even modify the pay at the next meeting after you look at the numbers. What's to prevent the council from, and it's just a suggestion to try to deal with the tension of timeliness, but also wanting to look at all the numbers. What about just approving the job classifications? And if they stay vacant, they stay vacant. You don't have to fill the positions. But at least that way staff can start that process. I mean, cause I don't know what lead up time, but I'm assuming there's 2 weeks to a month of lead up time before you can fill and start hiring people anyways, right, Kathleen?
Yeah, for the 15-year-old guards, there's going to be a lot longer lead up time because they're gonna have to get their certifications. The other guards don't have to certify every year. So there are guards that they're ready to go whenever the green light goes on. Their certifications are still good.
Okay, well, it was just a thought.
So no, it's a good point though, because you do have a lead up time. The opportunity, what excuse my phone, I don't know what it's doing, I thought I put it on silent. The reach out time to get kids to commit, that's the hard part, because if Jackson gets to certain groups of kids first, and they're set to go because they've always run their pool except for that 1 year that I know of. ACRA's probably recruiting already because they normally do. Plymouth and Ione are kind of in a different place this year. So we're both probably gonna be a little bit behind in the game. I'm not saying it can't be done, I think it can. There's a little advantage to the exposure Plymouth has to some of these possibilities that maybe other pools don't have. But I would be concerned not putting our hat in the ring earlier than later.
So Frank, are you suggesting that we consider approving the job description and the positions and start advertising now to fill those positions?
I was saying that's an option if you wanna deal with the lead up times. Or any that wind up time that you're gonna have to burn anyways, and while you're looking at the numbers, and then if you look at the numbers in 2 weeks and it doesn't pencil or it seems cost prohibitive. You just abandon that, that's all I was suggesting.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking Kathleen, because I don't know, if that was an option, I wanted the council to know that was an option.
As long as we don't start bringing kids in for interviews until we have this resolved.
I think a lot of this stuff is networking. certain kids wanna work at certain pools for different reasons. And, you know, if they feel like they have an opportunity to be where they wanna be, they'll kind of wait it out. Because I don't think very many of these kids go through summer without actually being able to guard somewhere, cause is it Rancho Seco or something? There's another swimming place, it's not a pool, but it's nearby.
Okay.
A lot of them guard there as well. So, you know, it's kind of, that's the best way I can say it, it's kind of a networking thing.
Heavily.
You know, if I live in Sutter Creek and I can't drive, then I'm gonna wanna work at the Sutter Creek pool, right? So if I think there's gonna be an opportunity there, I might hold off on committing to anything to see if that works out, rather than try to figure out how I'm in a carpool somewhere. I mean, I kind of agree with Frank, I don't see the problem with approving the positions, because if we choose not to do the pool, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we just have job descriptions for a future date. Or we pull them if we don't like them at that point.
Well, in the history too, if you're going to have some history on this, we ran this pool for, what, 35, 40 years? Prior to after ever being involved with it. And it's because we had a strong adult community that were in there, Diane Grove Bennett, and can't think that, you know, that I can't remember that guy, I was calling him out. They were, you know, so they ran it for years, and then when they retired, went off and, you know, Guy became a teacher, and I don't know where they went, but, you know, then it fell to the city, we didn't have the staff that we have today. So, you know, with less staff, we decided to go with that because it made sense. You know, then we didn't have to deal with it on the daily.
We couldn't find the staff.
Yeah, we couldn't find the staff too, and we didn't have the staff hired here. So historically, like I said, we ran the pool successfully for a lot of years. And then that went away due to circumstances, so that's just a little backstory.
Comments? Do we want to give some direction? What are the wishes of the
I
council?
think just one last point, and I'll shut up, I promise. I know it's going to be flying away, but I think Councilmember White's point of identifying Ione's application period for lifeguard is already opened and closed. We're already 2 months behind.
Yeah.
So.
That's 2 more weeks.
Or is this the year to do it, right? Do we just continue to force and drive this thing through, and to hell with doing things properly and putting the horse in front of the cart? Or do we?
But by getting a budget for in 2 weeks, isn't that what you're asking for? I'm just
I mean,
curious.
that would work, right?
Right,
But
that's what I'm
it's a plan, but even in 2 weeks or even today.
Right.
We're already 2 months behind the city of Ione in hiring lifeguards.
Yeah.
Even if we did it tonight, we're already behind.
Right.
So I don't have an answer.
Right.
I just know that
Right.
it's like
And that's why I came.
I don't have an issue with a what. I absolutely love us taking over the pool and championing the vision that Kathleen has presented tonight. I have an issue with how we're getting there, and yeah, whether it may be $2,000, but it's $2,000 here, it's a little bit over there, this has become a
Well, it's never
routine
gonna be a
pattern
it's never
that
gonna
it's
be a problem.
emanating. What's that?
It's never gonna be a profit. It's never gonna make.
It's not about,
Right.
it's not, for me, it's not about the profit. Pools are money losers for a community,
Always.
period.
Always.
And so it's not about that, but we're looking to implement an entirely new program on admittedly a staff that's already overworked or working in 1,000 different directions. And we're creating a new program to implement and put on top of it, and we're already 2 months behind the power curve. Why are we forcing this? And I'll drop it at that, but for me, we have to have a process for implementing and putting programs into place. And we have a convenient pattern of, you know, I'm tired of being surprised, whether it's COPS grant, whether it's we didn't meet this money, or we didn't meet that, it's like the oops. We have an obligation to a greater community. I know our community wants that pool 7 days a week and lessons and everything else. You know, I have a hard time approving a program to go forward. We have a couple of job descriptions, and the only comparison of what those lifeguards are being paid is to McDonald's. What are the other lifeguards being paid in the areas? Are we commiserate? Are we comparable? Do we even have a chance of recruiting lifeguards with what's being proposed? Or are we overpaying what other people are paying? I mean, obviously, like minimum wage is minimum wage. But I mean, all that information is public record. It's all available. We have not set ourselves up for success, and we have not done our due diligence in what we need to be doing in providing us as a council, what we need to make a decision to say, go and implement the program. We're piecemealing it and backwalking into it, you know, the job description.
I don't think any of us disagree with that.
Right, but
I think
how do
that's
we go forward on this, right? It's take a blind leap of faith, right? I mean, it's either take a blind leap of faith or we get a.
What's the worst? We do it for 1 year and then we say, oops, so we threw $1,000 away, and I'm not saying $1,000 is not $1,000. Or we just give it back to Akron next year. I mean, it's really no harm no foul. And if it saves us money, we're ahead. I mean, that's the beauty of it. I mean.
For me, it's not the what, it's the how we're here. And that is, I'll stop because I know it's been spending way too much time on this.
That's why we're here.
Okay, I'm just doing a quick off the cuff. If you're looking at just lifeguards at 30 hours a week, and you want 2 at the pool, in case there's an emergency, you don't want to leave 1 lifeguard alone. So if you have a head lifeguard and a regular lifeguard at the pool for 30 hours a week for 10 weeks, you're looking at approximately $11,700 to staff those 2 positions.
Which
Is that based on, what is that based on, an hourly rate of?
That's based on the hourly rates 21 and 18.
Okay, so that's not taking into consideration payroll tax.
No, it's not. It's,
yeah.
as I said, it's just a quick rundown.
Yeah,
Ballpark, 30 hours a week, 10 weeks, because by mid-August, school will be back in session, and nobody will have their pools open except on the weekends, because like I said, the lifeguard pool is all school aged, college aged for the most part.
so I think for me personally, I would feel better about having more information brought to us in 2 weeks. That's my opinion.
Staff has no problem with that. I'm more than willing to do that. Worst case scenario, we do that. And we can't find enough guards, then we'll have 2 options. We'll either have to cut the available hours so that we have enough staff, or we can go to Akron.
Any further discussion on this? Okay, all right. Well, thank you for everybody's time and thought put into this. And thank you, Kathleen.
This is how we make better decisions, is having all this input from everyone.
Yeah,
And all the different ones, you know, it's different, everyone has their opinion, and it's good to have those opinions, because at the end of the day, we're gonna have a better product, right?
right.
That's what we want.
That's what we want.
to solve it.
Yeah.
All right.
Is everybody ready for me to move on to the next part of the agenda?
Wait.
Or do you want to talk more about the pool?
No, I think we're good. I think we beat that part good.
Okay,
Excuse me, Mayor.
yes,
Can you Can you give me specific direction as to exactly what you want 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think, and you guys chime in, but I think that we're asking for staff to come back with a more comprehensive
We're not about that.
proposal, if you will,
Budget.
a budget.
The-
A
The
budget.
document you referenced, it doesn't have to be the full detail.
Right.
Like, I am document, the full implementation.
But that leaves open doors in my mind, because there are things that have not been, I mean, I can come back to you with a labor comparison and gate money. The hard part is, I'll have to assume the gate money that was last year.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I don't have a set fee for swim lessons, so I guess you want me to come up with
Well, there's gotta be an aggregate out there. Jackson does it.
determination,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, Jackson does it.
That's what I'm asking, do you want me to
Right.
come in with a determination of what I
I think
think
what we're
would be
asking
a
is-
basic fee?
I think what we're asking for is the ACRA, apples to apples. What ACRA
Right.
charges it and what they give us, right?
Right, well, then I won't have to worry about swim lessons,
Right.
so it will be gate fees.
We can always add that later. I'm just saying that.
Gate fees
But
and
right
like,
now, we just need to know what the bare bones budget of that's gonna cost us.
Okay.
If we do anything up and above that, that's a whole different story, and that's we talked about. But we just need to know what the hard costs are.
You know, then it'd be include a request in a request to hire, like, you know, obviously we need to create the positions and allocate the ability to hire staff, so requesting the staff, the number, I just in the 15-second read that Councilmember White had on that ION document about the pool, hiring lifeguards, X and X, X. I mean, that's almost sounds like a perfect little template to walk through. Here's the budget, here's this, here's that, hiring done.
It's a boilerplate. I mean, we don't, like, it's a
Yeah,
boilerplate.
we don't need to reinvent the
We
wheel.
don't need to reinvent this wheel.
Nope.
I think that information out there, all we have to do is grab. it.
Yep.
And then we tweak it to fit.
Change
Our
the names
needs.
to protect the innocent.
Yeah, tweak it for the needs.
And one last thing, not to add so much other full. I think in society now, we gotta realize, I noticed with like with me and promoting the band and music, things that I used to do, and I'd go, okay, I got a gig in May, let's go ahead and book that thing in March. Is now becoming, hey, I got a gig in May, let's go ahead and book that thing in December. Everything seems to be going in advance and booking your times out so much longer. So, I mean, in the future, just, yeah, we're probably gonna have to hit this thing in January next year, December.
But we'll be above ahead of the curve at that point.
And then just for the heck of it, while we were sitting here, I just went on Indeed and looked at, for what it's worth, and I don't know what these job descriptions are, I can't access that, I don't have an account. But in Rancho Cordova, and this was just posted 30 days ago, lifeguard one, I don't know what a lifeguard one does, but they're paying $16 to $17 an hour. Lifeguard two, assistant pool manager, again, Rancho Cordova, $16.75 to $17.75 an hour.
Yeah.
What we,
And that's. Oh, Elk Grove. Recreation leader and lifeguard, $16 to $17.50 an hour.
So
We're not even gonna look at San Francisco.
that'd be $30.
Yeah. Okay, do you feel like we've been clear enough with,
Yeah, I'm fine with the directions, and I'll put that together for the next thing.
I mean, it obviously as time allows for you, but. I don't think you could give us too much information.
But my other question with like the stuff you were pulling up, it's at some point there, when you get to the bigger pools, there are also multi-levels of
Yeah,
pool
Other
managers,
yeah,
food
Yeah,
people,
vendor.
I mean,
yeah,
you got a whole gamut, you might have an actual management person, I mean, it's kind of funny because I don't know what city or entity that this basic guideline came from, but obviously somewhere where there was more than 50 people that worked at the pool.
yeah.
So you also gotta look at that and go, what are we expecting our lifeguards to do? As opposed to what are they expecting our lifeguards to do? So I have a feeling we're expecting our lifeguards to do more. Just based on the fact that we don't have very many people in.
Thank you, everybody. So next on the agenda would be city manager's report. Do you have a report you want to give, or are we, if you're loud?
Okay, I'm just gonna give a shout out because everything I would have reported, I think we've already discussed about the pool. But I just wanna say that I think you know, but even coming from somebody who's not the city manager, the staff here really puts their heart and soul into this city. And it just makes me sad when I see things come up on Facebook, which I know we shouldn't be on, and I tell everybody else to stay off of, but you know, it's hard. When general staff who's just trying to do their job and do the right thing are you know, basically picked on Facebook. But I just wanna make the general comment that you do have a very committed staff here, and they try to do a good job for the city and the people of the city. And you know, I just wanna give a shout out, because I know a couple of them had some not so nice words recently that were totally uncalled for, but as a public works director, I want them to know I'm behind them 100%, and they don't need to worry about those comments. They're doing a good job. That's all I have to say.
Well, and if I could just add to that, I know I'm kind of speaking out of turn because it is city manager's report, but as I've shared with you, Curtis is frequently in our neighborhood. And he's very well liked. He's loved by a lot of the neighbors. And I've heard a couple of compliments from some, we'll just, people are very, very grateful and enjoy him very much. And I also think that probably don't have to worry about supervising him too much, because in our neighborhood, he's got about 120 supervisors. More than happy to say, oh, you know, this plant needs this, and can you trim that and that sort of thing. But anyway, I hear nothing but good things about our public works employees from my neighbors.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course. Mayor and council members' reports. Councilmember White?
Good.
Councilmember Ann Russo?
I'm good.
Councilmember Sim? Vice Mayor Blunt?
Just real quick, as it stands currently, I potentially have a work conflict out of town, the 27th, 28th, 29th of March. I'm hoping that changes, but that's where it currently stands, and obviously there's no other but in-person options, so I just wanna make council aware.
Thank you. I had hoped to be a little bit more prepared to give you more details, but Councilmember Sim and I, along with our city manager, Margaret Roberts, had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to join a webinar or a Zoom conference with Senator Marie Alvarado Gill's office about funding, you know, her request for funding from the cities and that sort of thing. And she was, her representative from her office was very specific on how to make the request. They had to have a process. And so we've had some discussions with Margaret, and we're looking at, you know, looking for some funding opportunities through the senator's office to help with the infrastructure. And the senator's office pretty much stated that it would be limited to funding opportunities of what, like $500,000 or less.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll be working on that, but that was nice to be able to participate in that. Other than that, that's all I have. So do we have any council requests for future agenda items? Councilmember White?
I'm good at this time.
Ann Russo?
I'm good.
Councilmember Sim?
I would like to place on a future agenda for discussion only. Would discuss the pros and cons of turning over our water distribution system to AWA. You can drop a match to that. Just to talk about it.
And I,
I can elaborate, but I think they pretty much figure out why.
and I think that we talked about that, for future agenda items, it would be, that there's a general consensus by the council that we would want to see something like that on a future agenda item. And, you just stated it's for discussion only. And I find the discussion helpful, to get some historical knowledge and pros and cons. So I would be supportive of that.
AWA is delivering the water to the residents of Sutter Creek.
Do we have any other, is that
We need,
enough?
I need another head nod.
What's that?
Sorry,
We need another head nod.
There you go.
I didn't hear that you want.
And I think it'd be, I've asked, maybe reviewing what our contract with AWA consists of, what does it look like, what does it include, what does it not include, right? I know of it, but.
They're generally running our water system and have been
Right.
for,
I'm glad it's
I
possible.
wanna say 7 years now. Our history in the past is every time we pay and train a water operator, as soon as they get up and going, they leave to a
That has
better
been
place.
Historically, the problem.
And it is honestly getting so complex with,
Let's save a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The point of this is we want to.
So we'll come more prepared when we see on the agenda. Right?
Okay, future agenda items, Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
I didn't know if this is an agenda item, and I didn't know where else to bring it up and ask the question. I know we are, as the ad hoc committee for a meeting with the Ione Band of Miwok Indians, we're preparing, Mr. Cranford's points this evening are left hanging, right? Are the maps really wrong? Is the site really not in trust? Is, just going through those pieces, right? They were left hanging. And then the other side of that is, does that even apply to us? Because the project's not even in the city limits. So do we even have a legal say? Like I said, I don't know if it's an agenda item or what, but it'd be nice to have maybe some of those questions answered so that we can, I guess, close that door. So I don't know, I guess I'm open as to what that would look like, but it'd be nice to be informed as a council as to whether any, none of that is true.
But at last meeting, we weren't supposed to talk to them, and now we're supposed to get those answers.
Yep.
So.
And
The
I don't know.
the work that the ad hoc committee is gonna do. Those sorts of,
Yeah, I would just say. The meet confer process is gonna be pretty exhaustive, and it's gonna cover issues related to maps and stuff like that, a lot of what was discussed, so. I would just say it's the work of the ad hoc committee to look at that and to discuss that in further detail for the meet confer occurs.
and also wouldn't it be appropriate for the ad hoc committee, as those types of questions
back.
come up, to seek legal counsel?
Yeah, absolutely, and
Yeah.
and the ad hoc will also be reporting back to the council, obviously on what happens and how those discussions go.
In his statement, he mentioned he's reviewed the planner's analysis. Or is it possible to is our planner's analysis already public?
Yeah, I believe that, I'm trying to remember what was published as part of the agenda last time, the agenda packet. But the planner essentially presented her preliminary analysis last time, and I think that's what Mr. Cranford is referring to, because she, as well as others, including our office, felt that the analysis had a lot of problems with it, and so I think that was the language he specifically was trying to paraphrase. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think she presented it orally. I don't think there was any documents that were part of the agenda.
Is there gonna be, I'm sorry, we're over bounds, out of bounds on this. Just, are we expecting a written report, something that have a chance to meet and digest before we meet, before the meet and convert?
Yeah. Well, we can discuss this more offline because this is something between the planners and legal and the ad hoc itself, but there will be. Absolutely, there will be some kind of written correspondence that is going to be sent to the tribe that will be a public record. That will have a lot of the issues raised and teed up so that they can review it before the meeting actually occurs.
Thank you.
And then I have no requests for future agenda items, nothing that I haven't brought up recently. Anyway, I look forward to, I'm hoping on the next agenda, we're going to be able to do that mid-year budget review and be able to get some real thorough information from Mary and Margaret, so that'll be nice. So I have no future agenda item requests. So it is 9:06 and the meeting